great. We have a really good, quick conversation on loyalty, and I'm always wanting to find the technology or the retailers who are doing something with loyalty that's going to make a difference. And so these two companies have some really great ideas, and we're going to focus on the business challenges, but it's, how do you know who your customer is, and then how do you know who your best customer is, and really take care of them so they come back. So let's just go ahead and start with Ernie, quick intro of who you are, and then, what are the challenges that you're tackling right now with your product?
Yeah, no, my name is Ernest Naylor, the president of Karrot, who's also located in Chicago.
Go Chicago.
So it's a good Chicago representation. But what we're doing is helping brands be relevant. And a lot of times I'll stress relevancy, right? So in the changing environment that we have, there's new customers, new retailers coming out, low-cost competitors, marketplaces, right? Amazon is not going anywhere. They're getting bigger, and they seem to be everywhere, right? So we're answering questions like, how do you drive behaviors that are meaningful to everyone here in the audience, but also significantly meaningful to the consumer, right? How are you building deeper relationships with your audience? And for us, audiences can be different depending upon who we're talking to. For brands, the audience can be retail sales associates, because we know that an engaged retail associate leads to increased sales performance. For retailers, it's consumers. How do you deepen the relationship? How do you engage with them at a higher level? And loyalty programs, in our world, it's not just points, right?
Yeah.
I want to get that out of everyone's mind. Yeah. Loyalty programs, not points, it's not discounts, right? It's not buy one, get one free. It's more to that. It's relevancy, it's convenience. An example I give, a loyalty program that's quote unquote non-traditional, is Amazon Prime. Right? Amazon Prime is a loyalty program that people buy into, because you think of the behavior changes. People in Amazon Prime, right, as a consumer, I might not price shop. I might not go down the street to the store, just go on Amazon Prime. I know it's a Prime, order it, boom, convenience. It's integrated in their everyday life. So that's what we're trying to do, is develop programs that individuals and consumers want to integrate into their everyday life.
Okay, great. And then what is the challenge that you're talking?
Yeah, so I'm Dani Cushion. I'm the CMO at Cardlytics. A little background on who we are, just so it puts into context what we see and the challenges that we are helping in the industry. We're an advertising platform, but built on purchase data. So we run rewards programs for companies like Chase, and Bank of America, and launching Wells this year, and a bunch of other banks across the country and in Europe. If you have a Chase mobile app and you know Chase offers, that's us. So we are the white label tech and data solution behind an aggregation of banks. And so for us, it's interesting, we sort of see loyalty through two different lenses. So how do you actually use technology for a bank to drive better bank customers, to spend more, to come back to their digital properties more, to attrite less, to not be help the banks not be depositioned by other major platforms. But really from the retailing side, which is where we can really geek out on what we see from a data standpoint, in working with these banks, we see $2.3 trillion in purchase data every year. Wow. So we aggregate the purchase data that come from all of these banks, apply analytics to it, and use it to help our marketing partners, so retailers, restaurants, travel companies, telcos, really anyone who is trying to figure out loyalty and how to drive a sale and drive the next sale and drive the next sale. We use purchase data to look at not just how much are they spending with you, because most good retailers worth their salt, they know that. They know as much as possible about their current customer, but they don't know where else they are shopping. And so from our perspective, since we see debit, credit, ACH, and bill pay data across the board, we know that someone's best customer might just be a heavy category shopper. We know that a marketer or a retailer might think that they have tapped out every single dollar of headroom that they already could from a consumer, and they think they're the most loyal that could be. But there might be a ton of headroom still sitting there because they just happen to be spending 80% more at a competitor. So for us, it's really about how do you actually help to broaden, use technology and data to broaden the full picture to identify who is your best customer and who's your worst customer, and how to leave them alone.
Yeah, could you, and we'll go backwards on this, but use an example about how you're changing what's the typical norm and really presenting something innovative.
Yeah, my favorite example, and this is sort of a use case that is very typical for almost every single one of our clients. But Advanced Auto Parts is a great client of ours. They've been a client for a long time. They're a do-it-yourself aftermarket auto parts store. They used to target, and all of the analytics that we do, we run it through the bank channels. So we sort of have our own native advertising channel. They used to be running campaigns just focused on getting new, and they left alone people that they knew bought with them 4 times a year because they're like, well, those are our most loyal. We don't know. We got everything we can.
We don't need to do anything?
We don't need to do anything. And understand, like everybody needs to get net new buyers. However, we ran a little analysis and looked at where their loyal customers were actually spending. And it turned out that I think it was 20%, the people at that loyal group, they were only spending 20% of their category spend on aftermarket DIY auto parts at Advance Auto. They were just really, really into fixing up their cars. Like there were people that loved to do it every weekend, and there was so much headroom for that segment just by opening up the frame of understanding of what are those people actually really spending across their entire spend profile. They opened up the targeting with us through our channel, and in a month we drove an incremental $1.5 million for them in sales.
That's incredible.
So there was something to tap into there just by taking a slightly different view of the data.
Yeah. And I think that's the, we're going to hear this point driven over and over again, right? When you're talking about loyalty, when you're talking about engagement, you have to break down the silos. You have to look at the data from different channels, from different disciplines, and how to combine them so that you have a cohesive strategy, right? And that becomes super important when you talk about loyalty, when you talk about engagement. So you're looking at the customer's journey all the way through the cycle. And we work with several strategic partners to do and look at different aspects to get data into our systems from a loyalty component. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you give an example?
We have one of our partners, it's a company called Fast Sensor.
Okay.
It's actually out here in the audience with me today.
Hi.
And what is really interesting, what we're able to do, you think about A/B testing, right? You talk about think of A/B testing, you automatically think about websites, right? Testing pages, see how the customer interacts, what's different, make some changes to improve that. But how about A/B testing from a physical location standpoint, right? Looking at how to change the displays, the interior of a store, because we're able to get exact data on the customer's journey. Where are they lingering? How many times
So
are they
you're
going to
using
an
heat mapping?
associate? Yeah, it's how long are they in line? Where are they standing? Where are they going? How often are they coming back to the store?
So would you say you're creating more of a full 360 of that customer, not just their digital footprint?
Exactly. And then we're looking at, too, how is the conversion happening, right? Are they purchasing it
Ooh, that's
online?
good. Where are they buying?
Are they in store?
Yeah.
Are they mobile? How do we get feedback? It's all this 360 of coming into breaking down the silos, getting the data all in one point to make an educated understanding of what the consumer wants to do instead of guessing what they're going to do.
So what do you, and you can both answer this, I'm prepared, but what are you doing to get the stakeholders to reinvest in loyalty or remove what they're doing to do this? Or maybe that hasn't happened, but I'm curious.
Well, I think, you probably speak to the same thing too, is there's power in the data, right? And creating that story of this is what you're doing, right? This is how things can change. This is how you could tweak it. And just showing that story, it has a lot of an effect to it. And that's something then they'll say, okay, then how do we double down on it?
Yeah.
How do we expand it? Because we know there's a lot left on the table.
Yeah, I'd love to build on that actually, because I love sorry, I'm sort of doing the mic.
I know, pick a mic.
What you said about putting the customer first and understanding their need, it's so true, and it sounds super cliche, but it's true. I mean, we all know that Amazon has got a huge growth in sales. Lesser known fact is that 80% of purchases still happen in a store. 80%. And so while online shopping is absolutely exploding, I mean, we really geek out on our data and like to cut it a bunch of different ways, but online shopping is exploding, but where the brick and mortar retailers are starting to do really well is to start to think about the broader customer journey and think about what is happening in a store, but when do they want to buy online versus when do they go in store? How do you promote those two channels so they don't cannibalize each other? How do you actually think about shopping online, ship to store? I think the Kohl's-Amazon partnership is so amazing and interesting because Kohl's was getting their lunch fed to them by Amazon, and they realized that by partnering with Amazon and having items that they could be picked up in a Kohl's, they have the customer there. And you're gonna go and pick up $200 worth of other stuff because they shipped it to store. You can ship Amazon stuff to a Kohl's. So there's some interesting creative ways that do come from a place of like using the data to make it actionable. It's not data for data's sake. That's sort of stupid. Like you gotta figure out how to use it to inform the decisions that you're making, whether it's in the store or even at a more macro level. Some of our partners do use our analytics to figure out where to put stores. And so if you know that you're a big box retailer and you got a massive real estate footprint in the States, we can look at their customers, where else do they shop? And so do we place real estate in an area where there are a lot of those things near them or not? Because you want it to be most conducive to the customer, and that's how you're going to drive them along the loyalty continuum, because you're making it easy for them. I'm a customer, I'm lazy, I want it the way I want it. And so we've got to think about it from that perspective.
And that's where relevancy comes in, right? You're being relevant to the consumer because they all want to feel like you know who they are, right? And that's where the data comes in and the analysis, because you don't want to make assumptions or think you know, right? You want to take a look at all the data feeding in so you are making educated, insightful decisions on what to do.
So when you say, it's no longer points, it's no longer this, can you just give us a couple examples of what that is instead? As a reward for the customer? Or you've identified me. I'm a important buyer. I spend 3 times more than everybody else. What are some things that you're doing when you identify me? Is that part of the program?
Yeah, that could be part of the program. I mean, you're looking at how to reward incremental engagement, right?
Yeah.
And the measure of that isn't always sales,
Yeah.
right? So what are the touch points that I have with the consumer,
Right.
right? How am I getting them to engage with me further? You see a lot of changes even happening in retail once they identify, their best shoppers and the different perks and the different things that they happen to personalize the experience
Right.
to make them feel welcome as a community and just giving them more of a personalized experience, because that's kind of what they want, because then they feel engaged, they feel like you know them, and you're building a deeper relationship.
Yeah, and it's a gamification.
Yeah, in a way.
Because we're all human beings who really feel good when you get a reward, right? Whether it is a stupid little couple cent reward, or there's a reason Candy Crush was so damn addictive. They had the model built so that you felt a reward to get to the next thing, and they had it perfectly mapped. And that, honestly, that can happen in so many different ways. I mean, one of our major clients is a big coffee company who looks at the purchase data. Their end game is to get them into their loyalty app. They know exactly how many purchases it takes to get somebody to download that app and use it. And then they have a deeper customer relationship, because then there's all kinds of other stuff you can do. Once they download that app, they spend 57% more a month. So, and that's just this one company, but there are different things that it takes you can use this in so many different ways. The applications are so broad, it's hard to narrow it, but it is just about using data, and then obviously the technology and the tech stack that underlies all of that to make it useful and normalized. And there's so much data out there. You do have to think about the underlying technology too, that you can actually manage it. It can be very overwhelming without that.
I'm curious, we just have a little bit, 5 minutes left. So either something innovative that you can talk about, or, are you putting investment in R&D, and what do you see beyond, it sounds like, the data, that's going to start giving companies other avenues?
I mean, you think of all right, the words out there, AR, right, AI, machine learning. There's so much going on to there where customers or retailers really have to rethink and retool every aspect of their organization, right, to make a truly customer-centric journey. And it goes down to where the customer feels like they're in control of their whole experience from A to Z. And that can be, things like, using AR, right? So I walk into a store, I'm able to put in what I want. I can handhold the customer directly to the aisle, directly to the display. Once they're there, educate them entirely what's happening, and give them a frequent, easy way just to check out, right? They don't have to worry about anything. It's done so easily for them. So I think that's one example of AR and getting that into that.
Almost like a seamless checkout where we know what you got and we're going to reward you later.
Yeah.
Or now. What about you?
I'll hit it from two sides. I think from our own, I'm a CMO of a B2B company, so looking at our own tech stack, there's stuff that we're always doing and thinking about our underlying infrastructure. To be able to process 20 billion transactions a year, we have a pretty hefty tech stack, but we are looking at new things like Kubernetes and things that are more open source and flexible that actually can flow and be more agile with the data that we process. But from a marketing perspective, I think actually using the data better and better. We're not looking to throw anything crazy far afield out there. There's still a lot of work to be done. There are still some major brands who are still really figuring out their CRM strategy because it's complicated, and particularly complicated. I think Ernie's friend from Analect, who is here, said there's another session next after. This is a different plug, but all about GDPR. And in a post-GDPR world, what does this mean? It's increasingly complicated to figure out how do you actually build a profile of your customers. And so a lot of where our innovation is coming is just continuing down that path to get better and better to help our clients arm themselves by using advanced analytics, by using things that talk to each other so you can actually start to make really informed decisions around having models that actually show, I don't mean modeled data, but I mean look-alike kind of things that has a propensity to buy model for, okay, if you have a woman who has bought this, 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 and this, we have a pretty good predictive analytic tool that can tell you when they might be likely to move, or when they might be likely to do this, or this, or this, or change cars, or this. And so the more you can understand about your customer, the more you can get ahead where they're going and start to present them with relevant advertising or products in the right way at the right time.
And going to, there's more work to be done, right? Even look at mobile, right? Mobile has been hit upon, and harped upon, but mobile means more than making your website mobile optimized. Right now, the biggest growth in mobile is in store because someone goes in, they're at the aisle, what are they gonna do? They're gonna pull out their mobile phone, they're doing the research right there, they're looking at the ratings, they're price shopping you right then and there. So if you're not capturing that data then, you need to. Because you need them to be able to convert that person and make sure they're a shopper.
Well, so as we wrap up in the last 2 minutes, maybe customers or brands that you see out there that are doing it well, do you have some examples for people to look up?
From brand perspective, we've worked a lot with Sonos, who have done things in a very innovative way. When we look at the audience from a retail associate perspective and making sure that they are engaging them, they're training them, they're making them brand ambassadors and really cultivating that group so that other consumers can understand what's happening when they walk into a retail location.
This is a really good shot.
A couple interesting ones from our perspective. Airbnb is very innovative in how they're thinking about reshaping, reaching customers as they're having mini adventures and just completely taking over and changing a space. What I think from there are a lot of retail applications if you look at what Airbnb is doing as well, if you think about how are they actually capturing share in people's spend. I think a company that's doing some interesting stuff right now is actually Macy's. And if you think about, there's a lot of pressure to do the pop-ups and the experiential stuff in stores. They did a deal with Facebook at the end of last year. They're trying stuff. They're A/B testing. They're A/B testing. How do you find that right sweet spot so the on-the-ground experience is what the consumer wants it, and it's sticky, and it gives them some stuff. They're leaning into trying some things, which may or may not work, but I do like seeing that there are retailers out there that are trying to figure out, how do I use AR?
Yeah.
Or how do I use, how do I use pop-up stores? Or how do I use ship to store, which is not sexy, but super practical and functional. Like different tools like that to try to get customers to be stickier and to spend more. So Macy's an interesting one.
Awesome. Well, we're out of time. I hope you all learned something. And
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.